Hey,
Hi,
I can't hear
everyone.
you. You're muted. Hey, Katie.
Hey, Fatumi.
Hey,
How
I
you
was
doing?
changing the name. Hello, everybody.
You sitting on the spot?
You out in the wind right now, Fatumbi? Are you at a train station?
No, I'm at the laundromat.
Oh, the laundromat.
Yeah, I got tired of this mound of clothes in my closet, so I'm like trying to do something about it. Hey, Dashe. Hey, Joey.
Hey everyone.
Good to see everybody. You give folks a few more minutes. I didn't start any music today.
Yeah.
Yes.
You think you have like 7 minutes to talk to me after this? My daddy jumped on somebody.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Thank you.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you said it. Oh. He tried to choke the man and everything just because he was white.
Oh, that sounds like our dude. It sounds like our man.
Yeah.
All right.
I've never heard it referred to. Good evening.
Good evening. I only have like a minute or two for music, just to give folks a little chance to come in.
Agama olodo iworo, agama olodo naiwe. Agama olodo iworo, agama olodo naiwe. Agama olodo naiwe. Olodo, olodo, olodo naiwe. Agama olodo iworo, agama olodo naiwe. Agama olodo iworo, agama olodo naiwe. Agama olodo naiwe.
names of the 3 bata drums. So the group is named for that, for one of those drums, and they play bata, which I explained in the earlier class when we were speaking about the drum. Okonkolo is one of the drum.
Wait, yeah, can you turn the music down and say that again?
Oh, sorry. I thought I turned it down. Okay, I thought I turned it down. Sorry about that. I was saying that the group that sings, that I put the name of the group in the chat, that produced the song that I played for Batala. The name of the group is Okonkolo, and they're a group out of New York. I actually happen to know them. They're very good. One of the singers in the group sings drums for our Elay. She's very good, known throughout New York as a great opon, or great ritual singer for the Orisha. And the name Okonkolo comes from one of the names of one of the bata drums that is played, and they play bata, which I explained in an earlier class, talking about the bata drums, and those drums are played throughout that whole album, so you can hear that and get a sense of the sound and feel of the bata as part of that learning and process. Okay, we'll go with this.
Is it possible to ever have a class on the different like roles in Orisha community?
The roles in Orisha community?
Yeah.
Say more what you're thinking.
So like the role of like the upon and the role of the diviner and stuff like that.
That's a possibility. That is a possibility. I had not thought of that, but it's definitely a possibility. I can definitely look into to doing something like that. As I mentioned to you all before, I'm very open to considering different types of classes that we can have, and that one is a possibility. We can definitely look into that. So thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see if that'll help. I'm gonna change it. Some reason it's not. Let me try to share again. The share options were. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Welcome everyone. I think everyone who let me know they were going to come are present. Welcome everyone to the class today. In alignment with Orisha, we're speaking of Obatala today. Obatala is, as some of you know, a very important Orisha for me personally. It's my father in Orisha. And so I've come to know Obatala for myself in certain ways, and a lot of what I'll share with you today has a lot to do with that relationship too. But I welcome any and all questions or insights or experiences that you'd like to share that also may reflect your experience with this Orisha. And we'll see what comes and what's shared with everyone. So let's see. The first thing I will say is that first of all, we'll be covering who and what Obatala is, how we experience that Orisha in nature and in an Elay setting. And sometimes questions come up about that, and that'll be great if you have any. And I have one song prepared for Obatala. It's a very standard song, but it's also a song that oftentimes is very long. So it may take a while to share and for you guys to get, but it's a very standard song for what you hear and what you when you come to Bembe or drum or even in prayer session. I've sung this song for our Saturday prayer session, actually, that I prepared, at least part of the song. So we'll see if we have enough time, but I did have a couple of Oriki that not Oriki, Pataki I wanted to share with you all. And hopefully that will be something we can talk and explore more of Obatala through the Pataki. So what is Obatala? Who and what is Obatala? Obatala, when we encounter Obatala in nature, our first knowledge of Obatala is through mountains. Obatala is oftentimes if we have to take something to Obatala in nature, oftentimes it is a hill. Obatala is the hill for several reasons in nature. Obatala's nature is to instill and support patience. And so when we're taking something to a hill or acknowledging a hill, we see something that took some time to exist. It's not something that's oftentimes associated with age, great age, antiquity, with great wisdom, and also reverence. Mountains are high, and we always look up to Obatala as our primordial elder. So mountains kind of carry a lot of symbolism, as well as what it evokes in people when we encounter mountains. So a lot of those things that were invoked in us when we see that energy, also we associate that energy with Obatala. And so being also, Obatala is the father of all Orishas, actually the father of us all. But considered, so in all stories, you'll hear about the relationships between the Orisha, either as sisters or as mothers or fathers. And oftentimes Obatala will be named as a father in a pataki. And I have one of the patakis I thought of sharing today, if we have the time, refers to Obatala as the father of two Orisha. So he is considered the eldest, the one that Olodumare, which is our word for God, or if you want to break down the word Olodumare, it means container of all possibilities. And meaning that anything that has ever existed or can exist in the future is what Olodumare is, or endlessly. So that the continuing creative force that exists and never ceases. So Obatala is the earthly representative of Olodumare. So that carries, and so when the earth was being created, Obatala was the one that Olodumare shared the vision of what this world would be, and Obatala was entrusted with leading the charge to create the world that we live in, and to ensure its perpetuity, its continuity. So Obatala plays a very important role in his relationship with the Creator. And as I mentioned, Obatala represents wisdom, eldership, and oftentimes when Obatala speaks to a person in a reading, that person is maybe tasked with acknowledging elders in their lives, acknowledging either elders in their family, elders in their spiritual life, elders that they meet. They may have to respect people with white hair. Obatala, when he is personified oftentimes as a Black old man with white hair, all white hair. So, and wisdom and eldership and seniority are his dominions. And also, and people generally know this, but for those who do not, Obatala is also associated with the color white. And so in deferring to Obatala in all that we do, whenever we go to ritual generally, or when we're working in rituals generally, wearing white is very customary in Obatala, and that is Obatala's color. So we're literally acknowledging Obatala in everything we do, just by our very presence and how we dress and how we appear. Obatala is the moral compass of all people. So Obatala is the one that sets for all of us a sense of how we should move in the world, how we should treat ourselves, treat others. So there's this idea that his eldership also means that he has a moral authority over all living beings. And I've shared the creation story with everyone on numerous occasions, and Obatala is the owner and molder of heads. So no matter, and molder of all of us, all human beings are believed through this tradition to be molded by Obatala physically. And regardless of how someone's head is marked, and before someone's head is marked, everyone's head belongs to Obatala. And even after everyone's head is marked, everyone's head belongs to Obatala, because Obatala is the father of us all. So if someone were to come to my home or come to a place where they were saluting the throne and they had to do the full salute to the throne or full salute to an elder, if we don't know who the Orisha on the head is, we all bless the person and ask for Obatala's favor over that person. So we would say, Obatala Bioso Dide. So we're acknowledging Obatala and asking the person to rise, or asking Obatala to support the person to rise who's in front of us, those of us who are initiated. So Obatala is considered to have that importance, that that we carry something of Obatala in us, with us at all times, and that is that means we have the opportunity always to have redemption with Obatala. We always have the possibility of, when no other Orisha besides Ori saves us, Obatala is that Orisha that will have the patience and the care and the support of us, regardless of whatever our relationship with another Orisha is. Obatala may be the Orisha that we may have to ask to intercede on our behalf at any time. And Obatala is the Orisha oftentimes that can save us for whatever we're experiencing. So, and also in that, because, and this goes back to a creation story of Obatala that deals with why we have people who have what are called deformities, or things that are, that either put them in a category of what we call special needs, or some other similar category. That is a story that's related to Obatala and what happened while he was making all human beings. So because all human beings do not have the same capacity, physical capacity or mental capacity, all of those who do not have capacity to either, that have problems with deformity with their arms, with their legs, when any part of the body that is that is not formed well, they come under Obatala's special protection. So that is, oh, that went too fast. So that is something that Obatala has a special dominion over. So if someone is born with dwarfism or born with cerebral palsy or with albinism or some other birth birth concern or birth was what people call defect, they are generally automatically children of Obatala, with some few exceptions, but generally anyone with those presenting concerns at birth are considered to be Obatala's children. Any questions or other things people want to learn about in terms of who or what Obatala is? You see, nothing in the chat. Everyone good? Okay.
So, okay, wait, no, I got a question.
Right, see, I just had to pay for it. Yes.
So, I understand that Obatala, like, there's like hundreds of Obatalas. So, like, there's many in like the male form and the female form, I guess. What am I trying to ask here? How is it that they kind of like represent that for us, like within our personal lives? So, like, how do we choose Obatala for ourselves? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I would say your head chooses your head chooses. That's kind of a question I can't answer because that comes with the initiation.
Oh no, I'm not saying like how do we like choose Obatala as a head. I mean like as something that's accessible to us within ourselves. What would help us to tap into Obatala, I guess, personally, without looking outside of ourselves.
Okay. Well, hopefully I answer that question with what we talk about next. So, because I don't know if I'd say there are hundreds of Obatala roads. I don't know if I'd say that. I have not heard that there are hundreds of roads. Yes, that is a good point that you did bring up, that Obatala does have both male and female aspects. That is very true. Obatala has several female aspects to Obatala's qualities. Orisha is one of the feminine roads of Obatala. So that puts Obatala, although we refer to Obatala generally as a male Orisha, Obatala does have what some people don't like the word, but an androgynous characteristic or character to the energy of Obatala. So there can be, you can be a child of Obatala and have a female role of Obatala, or have Obatala as a parent, as an Orisha. Say you have a Legba as your father, and you can have Orisha La as your mother, and that's considered a part of Obatala. So just to cover just a little bit about just to give a little more detailed information about what you refer to. So Obatala does have both of those energies, and honestly, it makes sense because Obatala is responsible for creating and molding all human beings, but all beings, really. All beings come under the divine protection of Obatala. Obatala also has the unique ability to speak and communicate with all beings, just similarly to Legba, but because of his role as creator of all of the beings. So Obatala's relationship with all the different types of animals, flora, fauna, and energies in nature, it's very intimate because of Obatala's role in creating and giving, supporting the ability for those things to actually exist physically. So, so I know I didn't answer your question, but I'm giving a little more information based on what you just mentioned.
That
Okay,
was
so,
crazy. Thank you.
okay. For some reason, I thought can you all hear me still?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I want to go to the next slide. There, oops, wrong one. Okay, so as I do at each class, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we work with the Orisha in terms of our comportment and how I can share with me my personal experiences with these with these with I mentioned here with these bullet points I mentioned, and you know, any of these can go first, honestly. So when I create this, I always go, gosh, what should I emphasize more? What should I say first? Because you know, there's so many ways that I can talk about each and every one of these. But you know, because Obatala is the father of all of humankind, all beings, the elder of elders, um, respecting elders, I'd say, is something that is very much in alignment with what and who Obatala represents, and it can manifest in so many different forms, right? It can manifest in recognizing where we are in our journey and how people who have more experience in the journey than what we have can support us, whether it be, you know, people who, you know, are in our work, in our spiritual lives, in our familial, you know, family, um, you know, deferring to people for what they know and how they can bring that knowledge to support us is can take place in many forms. Obatala always rewards those who remember that pacing ourselves and our growth is part of what respecting elders is about. Knowing that if we want to achieve something in life or go farther in life, that there's a pace and a process to it. I think Obatala more, with the exception of Oshun, has taught me that more than any other Orisha, with the exception of Oshun. Learning that respecting elders also means respecting where we are in relationship to others. Not as a matter of taking, not respecting elders just for respecting elders' sake, but also knowing that where we are in life has its own meaning and purpose and place, and how we pace ourselves to move forward towards actualization of the greatest beingness that we see in our minds. That has a process, and giving ourselves permission to go through that process rather than skipping steps over it is has this due and just reward. And we get the respect that we hope to earn one day when we do work through processes that way, and give ourselves the space to work through process in learning and growing and evolving as people. And of course, along with that, practicing humility and patience. Patience, I think, is the one. If I were to coin one of the main words that resonates with Obatala and in alignment with Obatala, it's patience. And patience and patience through, of course, through trials. When we see Obatala mount, generally, unless there are some younger roads of Obatala that are more of what we call the warrior roads of Obatala. When we see Obatala mount, We see someone generally start hunched over, like their shoulders and feeble, and unable to hold their body weight completely erect. And even when we dance, the dance for Obatala calls for everyone who wants to do the actual dance to bow forward, like you put your body as you bow, as if you're bowing forward, and as if you're literally dancing up a mountain slowly. That is the dance of Obatala. So the dance of Obatala even infers patience, infers taking your time. You go up when you like 8 steps, like when you're dancing and the music normally starts pretty slow. You go up dancing slow, like you're walking up a mountain, and then you walk back those same at 8 steps. And then you start 8 steps back up again. And so that in itself, I mean, everything about that, you're even dancing to Obatala, you're reminded of it may take you longer to get to a destination than it does someone who's running or someone who's at a hurried pace. Everything about that dance, even when you're in reverence of Obatala, is a reminder of the idea that humility and patience is a really important practice to maintain in life, and incorporating um, those two those two ways of being is important. And for me, as someone who works with people, one of the things I do, and some of you experience that, sometimes people want to know the answers to things right now. Like, I want to know right now. And people, they may ask for a reading, they may ask for something, some kind of answer right now. And sometimes what I'll say, I had this conversation with somebody actually today. Maybe we need to just take a minute and just sit with it. Just sit and use our brains, use our minds, use our capacity to think through a thing, and let that see where that takes us. It doesn't mean we're going to agree on the answer. Doesn't mean that I'm going to agree with you. You're going to agree with me on what I think or what you think. But at least we went through some process that includes reasoning, that includes thoughtfulness, that includes some sense of taking a pause and not going headlong because we think we know the question we want to ask. Sometimes when we take that practice of being taking things a little slower, being a little patient with the process, we can find out that maybe the question wasn't the question we really needed to ask. Maybe there was another question that is better to understand and ask in order to get a better idea of where and how to move forward. So and sometimes taking that practice of humility sometimes is difficult, because sometimes it gets, I find in today's world, I was having a discussion about this with somebody, how a lot of the movement in spiritual work now involves people wanting to how do I want to say this? I'm noticing that self-care oftentimes is involves, and no, this may or may not keep us on track, but I'll try to stay on track. But I think I want to finish this thought. I've noticed that the self-care movement oftentimes means being so focused on me. I need to take care of me. I need to take care of me. That that we sometimes create imbalances with the world around us, and with how we work within situations and processes. So sometimes I think the self-care movement, sometimes, although it's trying to get to a good goal, which is for people to feel but they are taking care of themselves and not being abused or not being not, having people not extracting their labor, extracting their sense of their selves. I think sometimes it goes to the opposite of what really the balance should be. And so when I think of an inner alignment with Obatala, I think of how we can look at self-care as being a part of balance and not the part of just self-care being me versus the world. Like the world is being is so cruel to me. So now I have to just, just disregard everything and everybody in order to take care of me. Um, and so I think that sometimes Obatala forces us to look at those things beyond the surface of it, to be more thoughtful, to be more considerate in thinking about how balance plays a role in a situation, in a process, in a movement, in an intention. So, so when we think about balance, sometimes we have to take sometimes some of the ways that we're taking in ideas from others and put ourselves in the center of it so that we can and do so with some care and thoughtfulness and balance so that we can actually come out of it with our own sense of what self-care is versus what everyone else is saying. Girl, it's time for me to just unplug everybody and everything and just do me. Sometimes that you can, but sometimes you also have to take in what balance means with that. So I sometimes, when I see that and I think about what my elders have taught me about balance, sometimes I see a difference in how those things carry out. So I'm hoping that when we think about inner alignment with Obatala, we think about where we fit into it. What is our meditation practice? Sometimes we can't do a full hour of meditation practice. Sometimes we have to be balanced, and sometimes it's 5 minutes a day. Sometimes it's, but thinking about balance and how that works with us. Sometimes stillness is hard to do. Some people want to achieve stillness where they're still like the silent retreats where people are silent for like a whole weekend. And I'm sure those are great, and I'm sure they have some really beautiful outcomes for people. But Obatala teaches moderation too. So sometimes when we think that something is good for you because you're told prescriptively that it's supposed to be this really great thing you're supposed to do to achieve this great goal, sometimes you have to think about that within the context of your life and what it means for your life to have that experience, rather than to take it wholesale as what it should be for you. So Obatala teaches us to use thoughtfulness and mindfulness, not in the sense of like this escapism that we see in mindfulness now, where you're escaping everything, but being intentional and grounded in using the context for how mindfulness supports your overall well-being. So when we think about Obatala, he gives us tools to really think about how to shape our lives in ways that that are unique to our needs and unique to our systems of support, unique to our goals, unique to our needs to do more. Maybe if we're over emotional, we may need to do more reasoning. If we reason ourselves so much that we're out of touch with our feelings, he may give us instruction to see where the balance is between those two things, so that we can actually have some sense of feeling, but also make sure we still remain using our reasoning as well. So all those things I think are very much like Obatala, balance and moderation. And one of the things that some of you probably have seen or heard from me. Oh, Makeba, you have a question?
Yes, I do. So would it be safe to say that Obatala kind of supports or emphasizes the idea of nuance in life?
The idea of, say again?
The idea of nuance.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say nuance is very much like Obatala um, because you know, as you see it in this man, there's this he gives us the chance to like I say, he's a Orisha that when the other Orishas I've seen it in readings where I've seen it in head markings too, like other Orisha that may be supposedly for that person's head, but because that person's head needed something to cool it, something to give it more balance, something to give it um, more opportunity to heal and grow. Obatala will take a head to do that. And because that's the nuance factor. So someone may very well should have been a child of Ogun. I've seen this. I saw it recently with someone. Um, they should have been Ogun's child, but Obatala needed to step in because if that person had moved forward in their journey with Ogun, um, that may have created more imbalances than balances for that person. And so Obatala brings in uh, a role to give that person another opportunity to kind of um, deal with those recesses of themselves that need to cool off, need to heal, need to recalibrate. Obatala gives us a chance to kind of get it together. That's what I think Obatala does. And I think that speaks to the nuance. Sometimes he comes in to just help us to have a place to lay our heads for a minute, to think, to be still, to be cared for, to have a break, have a breath, to have a breath, to take in what we need to take in, rather than to keep charging forward into whatever we thought we should be doing. So Batala sometimes gives us a chance to get some space between the world and our inner world so that we can have a buffer and support so that we can get ourselves together to get back out there in the world. So in readings, I was going to mention, I don't see any other questions or anything. In readings, oftentimes there's one sign that comes up that is very much a sign for Obatala, and I'll ask people to put their hands on their head, and then I'll ask them to hold themselves. And that is quintessentially Obatala, asking us to love and respect ourselves. That is really, I think, honestly, one of the specialties that Obatala provides for us. In addition to Oshun, oh gosh, I won't get emotional. Oh man. Yeah, so Obatala gives us a chance to really there are times with people who need Obatala in their lives in terms of inner alignment, who really have gone through a lot of struggles, a lot of trials, and a lot of hurts. And what Obatala does is he teaches us in terms of inner alignment to figure out how to live with ourselves. Because people who need Obatala, especially in their lives, oftentimes have done so much rejecting of themselves that they can't even recognize what they have to offer in the world, what they have to give, what they have to what makes them unique, what makes them special. Which is why I think that buffering I was talking about is so important, because Obatala gives us a chance to say, no, 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 let's look at who you are. Even the parts that aren't beautiful, that aren't broken. Obatala is the one that'll show up in readings that'll mention the abuse, saying, I saw when you went through those hurts. I saw when you went through that trial. I saw you went through um, those situations in your life that were really difficult and caused you to have a lot of doubts about who you are and what you're capable of. And Obatala is the Orisha that will oftentimes give you that nurturing father figure so that you can move forward, not only in your purpose, but in your healing, so that you can start to look at those broken places in yourself and give those places some nurturance and forgiveness. Another thing I think along with that is that Obatala gives you space to forgive yourself for things that you've maybe have done in the past, that you've not quite reconciled or not quite given yourself space to heal from or to forgive yourself. Obatala will give you the space to say it's okay. Some Orishas are not that forgiving. I'll be honest. Some are not. Some are very much not that forgiving because they all have different personalities, right? But Obatala is that Orisha that is that forgiving. Obatala is a Orisha you could come to when you've made some mistakes, and that he'll have the patience oftentimes to help you mend your life and put it back together. And so I think I mentioned this before, being aware of what informs your decision making. So I think that talks to the nuance that Makeba asked about earlier. Obatala, I think in our alignment with Obatala, we get to give ourselves some space to say, okay, what am I really thinking about? He gives you the space to do that deep dive, to say, okay, what's behind this for real? What's behind this? Am I driven by some addiction to something? He deals with people with vices, addictions, particular people who have issues of alcoholism, people who have issues with drug addiction. Many of those folks are children of Obatala, bar none, bar none. So Obatala gives you an opportunity to say, okay, what's really driving this? What's really behind this? Is this some past hurt I really need to deal with? Is it some past concern that I've not really worked through? Am I driven by this because I'm wanting something that I really know I shouldn't have? There are a lot of reasons why we have driven behavior, right? And how that affects our decision making. And Obatala gives us space to kind of really look at those things, and to be honest, have some reflective honesty about them, and then hopefully come out on the other end of that with some clarity, so that you, at least if you make the decision anyway to do the thing that you know you shouldn't do, at least you know why you're doing it. You're doing it consciously. And so you have a choice to either continue to move forward on a path that you know may or may not be the best, or you have the choice to say, okay, I know I'm doing that because of this thing that I know I shouldn't be doing. So I'm going to make a different decision. And that takes a lot of bravery, but Obatala is one that helps buffer us so that we can experience that bravery as best we can and have a soft landing. And I think that's something I did not talk about. I need to. Oh my goodness. Obatala supports healing and wholeness of families. So Obatala oftentimes will be welcomed into a home because he'll oftentimes announce, I'm coming into your home because your family needs to be settled. There's too much bickering, fighting. There's too much vitriol. There's too much jealousy. There's too much angst and nervousness, or like I said, arguing, or there's too much craziness. I'm coming in to bring everything to a more serene and peaceful space. He grants us. And so all of these things all put all together, I think amount to Obatala supporting our ability to have serenity in our lives, to have some sense of personal peace, to have some sense of personal just calm and like really on the inside, not just the stuff where we're doing the mudra and trying to get there, right? Mudra in our way there, but really being there on the inside, really experiencing that sense of just like knowing that you don't have any worries really, really. No worries, really. You can choose to give them to yourself, but in the end, you're really giving yourself worries. But that you really, in the end, in the world, have really little worries if you have faith. Obatala is the Orisha that oftentimes will introduce that into our homes. It will announce that's why he's doing that. I've seen it in many, many times in my time. Many, many readings. Obatala will announce why that he needs to bring calm and peace and balance into a space. So any questions about anything I mentioned in terms of inner alignment with Obatala? Everybody good? All right. So I wanted to introduce a couple of more pataki as I did last time. And I think we may actually have time for, it's only because we're not too many folks asking questions this week, so at least not right now. So we may have time for pataki, not only the pataki, we may have time for a song. So I'll probably go ahead and paste the words in the, I don't know if it's easier to follow along with the words or not. I may go ahead and paste the words in the PowerPoint. But first, how many people have heard the story of the imprisonment of Obatala? It's kind of a popular pataki. Has anyone ever heard it before? But okay, Fatumi, you've heard it?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, okay, tell us what you remember of that pataki.
So I think Obatala may have gotten divination done, and he was going on a trip that he needed to like bring multiple whites with him. But he was saying, "Oh no, I'll just pack light," and just only like bought the white that he had on essentially. And so Legba being Legba saw him on the road and like I think spilled some oil on him. So he ended up is mistaken for like I think a beggar who committed a crime. I'm not too sure about that part. And so he gets imprisoned and like they basically forget about him at the back of the jail. And the jail is in Shango's town. And so the women stop being able to get pregnant in his town. And he goes to the Divine and like, what's going on? My people was blue. And they say that you can have Obatala in prison. And so he goes down to the prison, finds Obatala. And for that, I think like him and Obatala build a bond or something like that. Yeah, that's all I remember.
Very good. Actually, I mean, he just told the story. He basically told the story like a less than a minute. But yes, all of what you said is very, very accurate, Patumbi. So I want to see KMLLP. I don't know what that means, Dashe.
That was an accident. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was gonna say, I'm very bad about the acronyms. Like I just figured out what LBS means. I'm not kidding. Like literally, like yesterday. So if I will ask about acronyms because I have very little.
LBS, because I don't know.
Laughing but serious. I just learned.
Well, we both learned.
There you go. So yes, Patumbi, that was really great recalling of that story. So I won't repeat the whole thing, but yes, Obatala did not listen to his diviners and soiled his clothes on the road, and a thief in the town near where he was traveling to had stolen horses. In the story that because there are different versions of the story, it's a very popular one, but it's different versions of it. In the version I heard, the story was that there was a thief who was likely a beggar who stole horses from the town. Oh, okay, that's okay, Isai. Thank you for letting me know. And so Batala was not clothed in his normal whites because they were soiled. And so he bathed, in a river without his whites on, of course, and could not really get the stain out. So when he put the clothes on, no one understood that it was a Batala who was known to be in his immaculate whites. when he saw a horse nearby where he was bathing, after he dressed himself, he went to this horse that he thought was lost. He was going to return the horse to its rightful owners and was mistaken as the thief that the town was looking for. And with very little trial, he was thrown into jail for years. He was thrown into jail for so long that his body became less erect, he became a hunchback, and he lost his sight. That's how long he was in jail. It was a dark, dank jail. And with nowhere for him to stand upright. And so he was in prison for so long in this small, uninhabitable cell that he became old, feeble, blind, and emaciated and sad. And so his sadness literally withdrew the opportunities for the women of the town to 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 be able to have children. So the women became barren, as Fatumbi mentioned. And that's when, as he mentioned, there was a divination done. And Obatala was rescued from the prison by Shango, but by the time he left the prison, he was a road of Obatala called Oyigi Yigi, which is like one of the oldest roads of Obatala. That when you see this road mount, the sort of Obatala mounted by someone in possession, they are literally so feeble and they can't see, so they need someone literally to attend to them the entire time they're mounted. And that's the road of Obatala that was imprisoned. And because of that, their pact, the Shango would always share a pact of supporting Obatala, and Obatala supporting Shango, that the once all red bead that Shango used to wear has white in it, and as a symbol of his deference to Obatala for bringing, once he was freed, he was able to restore balance into the community, and the women were able to have children again, and things were in their rightful order. So as a debt to Obatala in Lukumi, in Cuba, that the bead of Shango is red and white. In Nigeria, the bead of Shango is still red. That pataki did not, even though the pataki is from Oyo, is from Nigeria, it's still that the implication for the change of the bead only happened in the diaspora, did not happen in Oyo. So
Yeah, I have a question.
yes.
I had also heard that the reason why it's red and white is because basically Obatala, like Shango was going on a rage, like war or something like that, and Obatala essentially like had to sit him down so that he could collect himself and act like a king instead of a warrior. Is that true at all?
That's another, there is a pate key that is related to that. So yes, and what you'll find is that some of these stories have multiple, and I don't like to say, if there's another pate key out there, and I'm familiar with that story as well, and that is another pate key. So I wouldn't say that is wrong necessarily. So yes, that is another pate key that talks about how Shango went from a warrior to a king, I believe is the pate key as referred to. So yes, I'm familiar with that as well. Thank you for sharing. So what do you all think about that pataki that I just shared about the imprisonment of Obatala? What are your thoughts about it? Any thoughts?
I think it kind of explains how his patience is so key, because being in jail for that many years that he became feeble and bent over, I mean, that's a lot of patience, and that's, to me, forgiveness, because a lot of people would have been angry.
Yeah.
I think, I'm sorry.
Good point.
I think that it also speaks to the self-reflection of Obatala because he didn't listen to the direction of the divination. Like had he would have listened to what he was told, he wouldn't have been in that situation. So I think that patience that he was having, because when you look up the definition of patience, it means the endurance of suffering. So I think that patience that he was having, like he really had to sit with himself and say, well, damn, I wouldn't have been here if I would have just listened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna say also the mindfulness, the stillness, like you were kind of, you had to sit yourself, you had to endure, you know, there was really no way around it to get those lessons. And now that's like what he represents. So it kind of aligns.
Mm-hmm.
What
That's a good
also
point, too.
interests or intrigues me is the concept of Shango's beads changing from red to white only in the diaspora though. That I don't know what that is there, but it's something with that that's very interesting to me.
You'll find that's interesting you mentioned that because you'll find that you will find that with certain ways either we've adapted. I think also there may be other influences to that too. But you'll find that to be true in some respects of certain ways that even the Ide Fa, the colors that were adapted in the diaspora versus in Nigeria, all of that is deals with representation and Odu and how it's interpreted and how that interpretation affects our reverence of those Orisha, and how we display that reverence. So it is an interesting idea that we have these ways that we can use our knowledge of Pataki in stories and in turn have that become a part of our tradition and reverence in terms of how we interpret that. Because at some point there was an interpretation of that Odu that was hundreds of years ago in Cuba that has lasted for that amount of time to the point where we didn't, many people wouldn't even know that there were only red beads for Shango. Right? So it is interesting. I agree with you, Makeba. And I agree with all of your, I think it's really interesting how you guys saw the imprisonment and how all those things reflected in how we understand Obatala's how Obatala influences our character. And the humility he had to show for acknowledging that he didn't listen to his diviner, so he had to show humility in the face of that. And again, like we mentioned, Eshu is oftentimes a character that also kind of tricks us into, as I've mentioned to some of you, Elekba tricks us into our destiny, the same as he tricked Obatala into that humility, that patience, that stillness, that ability to forgive, that ability to be patient. All qualities that we look to Obatala to support us to have. So I think all of that's really true and interesting. So the last Pataki is one that deals with Obatala, Oya, and Oshun. This one is probably lesser known, but it again, I think emphasizes the relationships that he has with these Orisha, and how they relate to each other. So this is, actually there's kind of two parts to this story, but we don't have the time to go over all of them. Oh wait, okay, well I don't know what happened. It stopped going. I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna do the stop share for now, so we can all see each other. So how would I start the story? So Obatala and is in both in the story is the father of Oya and Oshun. So he sees these two as his daughters in the story. Oya is some of you I in there's an Orisha I plan on actually speaking of next. Oya is personified by the wind. She's personified by tornadoes, and any strong winds that can bring destruction and quick change in anyone's life. So she is literally she is the winds of change, and she um, is the idea of transformation in it as an idea. So Oya encompasses both of those as an Orisha. So one day, and a lot of the stories with Obatala and Oya, a lot of the Patekis deal with his working with her to not deny who she is or what she is, acknowledging that Oya is Oya. Oya is that transformational wind that we sometimes don't like to see coming, but that will bring the change that will make us have to reevaluate and think things that we assume to be the nature of a thing. And so he is oftentimes in Pataki negotiating with Oya, not to give up who she is, but to direct through some sense of control how she directs her energy and her focus and her power, because she is a powerful warrior, Orisha. So Obatala oftentimes tries to shape that so that it can, that power can exist, but exists not to completely be so unhinged that we can never have any kind of, so his creation isn't always always vulnerable to her. So so in many of Pateki, you know, she is negotiating with him and Alegba so that she can direct her energy. She can do her Efulele. Efulele can exist, but she can only exist to but not destroy everything in its path. So that's why sometimes when you see tornadoes, you'll see some houses that are standing that you're like, how does that house still standing when everything else around it is like done, right? That represents the pact that Oya had to make with Obatala and Alegba. And so that she can still stand on her own and still do what she has to do, but not be completely out of control. So in this Pataki, Oya was having another one of her rageful fits. Many all do in Pataki show Oya having rageful fits. And she was having one of her rageful fits. And in the midst of it, she took Obatala's staff and threw it in the sea. So there's a couple of injuries here. One, she's disrespecting her elder. Two, she's throwing Obatala's staff in the sea, and he cannot have salt. Right? Some of you who've prepared meals for Obatala, or I've talked to you about Obatala preparing meals, it's like no salt for Obatala, right? So this is a major, what we call ewo, or a major taboo for Obatala. And she completely just was like, you know, and so she did this, and of course went away, and he can't go in the sea to get his staff, because that means he would literally be inundated with the very thing that he cannot take. So Oshun comes and asks her father, what's the matter? And he says to her, well, yeah, it's throwing my staff, my divine staff into into the ocean, and I can't retrieve it. I'm an old man. I can't move. I can't, and plus like the salt thing, I can't do it. So Oshun, um, although she is Sweet Waters, she goes to visit her sister Yemanja, and asks her to help her to find her father's her, because the rivers do meet the ocean, so technically she could, right? So she dove, and she asked her sister to please help her to find her father's staff. And so Yemanja helped to retrieve it. So Oshu retrieves the staff, goes to her Sweet Waters, cleans and cleanses the staff of all salt, so that Batala could take it again, and gives it back to him. And he was sitting at the edge of the ocean, very sad in this moment, because he felt, he felt very heartbroken that his daughter would do this to him. And so while Oshun was there and she gave him his staff back, she sang a song to him. And she sang a song to him that consoled him, so that he asked her, what was that song? And she sang it for him again until he knew it for himself. And he told her, and she told him, rather, Oshun told Obatala, if ever you need me, just sing this song to me, and I will come to your aid. Wherever I am, I'll come to your aid. And so then she left him. Obatala, one day, being the old man and feeble man he is, he injured himself, and had an open wound on one of his legs. And Oya came and said, well, what's wrong with you? And he said, oh, I've hurt myself. I've injured myself. And Oya took a poultice of different medicines, but she included salt in the medicine, and put that in his wound, and left as soon as she came. So he was left again in agonizing pain with she literally poured salt in the wound. Right? He's like, no. Exactly. So she literally poured salt in his wound. Probably because she was, the staff thing still, she still, was mad about the staff. So she went off into her fit, uncontrollable, volatile nature. We know this about Oya. She showed it with her own father. So Oshun, he was in so much pain. He was literally crying out in pain, until he remembered the song that Oshun told him. And so he started, even while he was singing it, he was still in pain and crying and singing in pain, the song that she had told him to sing. She came to his aid with her Sweet Waters, healed and dressed his wound, and saved him once again. And it's for these and other reasons that Oshun is also always a Orisha that Obatala holds close and in deep affection of. So there's a real kind of like sweetness. There's this thing about sweetness that holds them together. There's a thing of her recognizing her ability to be a healer, and oftentimes being the one that people don't think of, as I mentioned last week, the last one to call, the last one. But because he was open to receiving her help and support, she was there for him. And there a lot of the stories with Obatala and Oshun show this kind of fondness and endearment to one another. So this is one of those stories that shares that as well. So it's because Oshun always came to his aid, and always supported him when he needed her, is why he holds Oshun in close affection. That story is a little more straightforward than the first one. But I thought it would be a nice one to end on.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Yeah.
Sure.
I'm trying to recall my patience. So my first one would be, why was Oya doing that to Abatala? Like, what was the offense? Because I know she's not doing nothing.
You ask. Is that the question you really need to ask?
Kinda, because I feel like she doing stuff just to do it at this point, or like I feel like Oya be having a reason behind why that happens.
You want
But
her, you
also,
want her to be redeemable in your eyes. Is that what you want?
yes.
Okay, so that again, we had to go to another question. So the question wasn't how, I'll talk to you in a minute. I sent it to you already. If is a question why she is not redeemable, or at least in the story, not all stories have her as having this volatile nature, but that's the thing about volatile natures. Volatile is volatile. Does having a volatile nature require explanation? That's a question, right?
Yeah.
If you know, and she does. I mean, that is the nature of Oya. That is her nature. Her nature is volatility. The Odu that she rules in is a volatile Odu. And not always in a negative way, right? Volatility can mean that things could change on a dime in a way you don't expect, that brings good things, or moves things out of your way that you don't think you need or want to have moved, but ushers in something new you would have otherwise not been able to find or had interest in had that thing not been moved. So the Oya's role, and we'll talk more about this next week. Oya's role is not only one-dimensional in terms of that rage, but oftentimes one of the lessons that Oya teaches, because it's a lesson that Obatala has taught her, and that Alegba has taught her, is that you can be yourself. And we know we wouldn't recognize good without the bad. We wouldn't recognize bad without the good. We know this, right? That's a very common saying in our tradition, right? They coexist. And the Rishas oftentimes are the actors and progenitors to help us to see how they coexist. Does that mean we don't go to Oya to propitiate her, to ask her for our help, for help, to ask her for support, to ask her to help move things in our lives in the way we want? Of course we will. And she's volatile. She's volatile. Not negative. There's a difference between negative and volatile.
I see. I think so. This like I think my first question really is my second question at the end of the day. Like, how does Obatala feel about when elders disrespect like younger folks? Because I feel like that's something that like that happens too, and with him being like the Orisha of respect, it's interesting to me to see that because I feel like that's what happens with Oya. Like she gets disrespected, so she want to flip whatever.
You giving her a reason, there ain't been no context to that. No one said nobody disrespecting Oya. Ain't nobody said nothing about that. You want to give her a reason to be mad.
I just feel like let her do her thing.
She has rages that require control. She has rages that require control. There was nothing that said in the story that leads up to that talked about how there's less, sometimes these stories are linked, right? That's why I gave the context before about the negotiation that her character has that nature about it. And so the goal isn't to change her nature, but to help her to have a more defined sense of how to use it to its greatest effect, best end. Not to say that she can't be the wind, she can't be the tornado. That's like, that's not what the goal is. But no, I wouldn't apply that in this situation. Obatala, there's no pataki I'm aware of where Obatala or any shown any disrespect to young people. I think the only Orisha where that applies better is Oshun. Remember the story of Oshetora that we talked about last week?
Mm-hmm.
Where she was disrespected, right? And so they disregarded her as not having anything to contribute, and she was the key to the whole thing working. So if any Orisha holds that mantle, it's Oshun, not Oya. And I'm gonna say that pretty definitively. And only thing we have to go on, that's why I always mention oral literature. We have the literature to give us that knowledge. That's what we go with. We go with what the Odu say and what our oral literature teaches us. That is the basis upon which we have growing understanding. And given that you are a very good student of it, we want to make sure that that stays the focus of our suppositions, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, so with Oya, and again, what does Obatala have to say about disrespect of younger people to elders? That is a tricky question. I would just taking that on its face what you asked. That's a tricky question because, as I mentioned before, the way that respect, as I mentioned, thinking about the respect for elders and recognizing where Obatala being the pinnacle of wisdom that comes with age and experience, right? So Obatala literally is like the personification of wisdom that comes with age. And so there's an expectation within, when talking about inner alignment with Obatala, that a person understands that there are, even young people having experiences, that there are certain experiences that teach you, that you grow to understand with age. Not all experiences, right? But some, for sure, right? That there's a process by which we grow, learn, take in what's meant to be taken in with that, grow some more, learn, take that in, incorporate that into our beingness, grow, learn, take, so that's a process, right? And Obatala personifies that process, like the mountain, the mountain that the peak, that going up that mountain, right? So I don't know if I could introduce this idea of Obatala having an opinion about youth being disrespected by elders. If the person who has knowledge and experience has something to teach someone else, as I mentioned, then that should be the person that has deference in that situation, right? So, and I don't know if that's in respect to age necessarily, but experience, as I mentioned. So if you've had, experiences in jewelry making, that give you a leg up over me, because I've never made jewelry, not, well, I should say never, but I have very little information about making jewelry. I should defer to you, even though you're younger than me, right? Even like another thing, my son who's 18 years old, even though he's only 18 years old, he's been initiated since he was born. So even somebody who is physically older than him, if they were not initiated, or not at least his age in Orisha, they would have to do ballet to him, right? So someone who is, 60, 70, who wants to get the blessings of Oshun, and they have, I mean, he's blessed folks who are much older than him, because he is the elder in that situation. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm
It
trying to give
does.
some nuance, as Makeba was mentioning, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got a question. I apologize to interrupt
Right?
you.
No need to apologize.
Well, to interrupt you, I'm apologizing for that. But the question I have is, when we're talking about eldership and honoring eldership, first of all, Oya threw his staff in the water. She know better than that. Yeah, I said it. Now I'm broke my leg and I'm gonna let her help me. And she knows that I cannot deal with salt or water. I mean, so my whole thing is I understand Oya. I got her. I know Oya. I know some Oyas for real. What I don't understand is if we're talking about who he exemplifies and you're allowing yourself to be disrespected because she threw his cane in the water. She didn't care. Then he broke his leg. Then you're gonna put some salt in his wound? Really? So I don't get that analogy, and I understand that a lot of times we equate some of the humanistic ways that we have with the Orisha when we hear these podcasts. So you have to understand where the understanding of some things, there is no understanding. Because if somebody did something like that to me, Boo Boo Kitty, you wouldn't get another term. And I'm trying to understand why ain't nobody checking her.
Okay. Very good questions, actually. Very good questions. So, and anyone else who want to give their opinion, you can. I would say that yes, he loved her so much, and she is his daughter, and he trusted her to help him. Yes, even though she messed up before, he had that level of patience to support her while she got it together. Yes, he did. And her nature is volatile. He did not expect, good tea. He did not expect for her to wrong him. Are you leaving, baby?
I was going to shoot.
Oh, okay, you coming back?
I don't mind.
Okay, see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Be safe.
They said be safe, honey. I don't, because her nature, you have to remember that volatile nature means that he could have expected her, the nature, her cool nature, that's the gentle breeze, to show up when the tornado showed up. Even the Orisha have to accept Oya's nature as volatile.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it safe to say that Oya's nature is kind of manic? Because like just listening to the way she's being described right now, it makes me think. I have a friend who deals with is it manic depression or bipolar depression or both? Maybe both. And she kind of has those same qualities. Like you never know how she's going to show up. Like she could be the sweetest person in the world, or she could also be like that crazy person that you just don't want to have anything to do with. So just like listening to the way that Oya is being described, it's kind of like that. And that kind of makes me feel like that's probably why nobody is checking her, because it's like, okay, baby, we know you're dealing with something else. It's not.
Well, I would say that her nature as unpredictable is bigger than just one aspect of emotional nature. I get what you're saying, but I think that her volatility in the story is speaking to that. I think her volatility has as much to do with how we have pieces of, one thing that I love about this tradition and the way we get to know Orisha and all the multifaceted ways that they come into our lives and teach us, as well as support us as we grow and learn, is that there's a lot of different aspects to their nature that that help us to understand more about the world we live in, right? And to connect with nature on its own terms, and not to reduce, and to your point and to Joey's point, seeing the humanness in this, because we are that, right? That's going to be our lens through which we look through everything. So I appreciate both you and Joy mentioning that, because that is a part of how we connect and we kind of understand, try to make some sense of what it is we're experiencing when we talk about the Orisha, humanizing them in a sense. But I think that one thing about Oya, and you can even talk about Babaluaye, Orishas that are very complex, right? Oya is complex. She's very complex. Same as Babaluaye is very complex. He is the owner of disease. How can that not be a complex role? Because you're literally the Orisha that can cause pandemics or contribute to or have something to do with a pandemic happening, which means people being sick, people dying, but you're also revered as a healer and a king and someone who triumphed over much adversity. There's a lot of complexity in that. Same with Oya. Oya is, and I'm going more into Oya than talking about Obatala, but to get to some of your answers, she's a warrior. She's a warrior that has can fight as she's a woman that grows a beard on account of war. She's she is many stories. She has these different facets that she doesn't like to show everybody. She owns owner of the mask. She disguised herself, even though she was a ram in secret. She disguised herself so that she can be a beautiful woman to live with certain Orisha. Very complex Orisha. She's a very complex Orisha. She's beautiful. But she doesn't have the seductive qualities of Oshun, but she's always portrayed as being this beautiful woman warrior with a lot of strength and a lot of courage and a lot of balls, right? So she has this nature that is not easily put into a box or put into, not even Obatala can put her nature into a box. Alegba can't put her nature into a box. And there's stories about Alegba literally harnessing the wind as we know it, the tornado, and holding her in place to say, look, girl, look, sis, look, check this out. No, I ain't letting go. You rough. This is not easy holding the wind, but I'm gonna hold you for a minute so we can have a conversation. Look, you gotta be you, but we gotta figure something out, because no one can live with just all chaos. And I'm the man, I'm the chaos guy, so I know. So let's negotiate this. So Batala's here, he's trying to give you some pointers. Let's talk about this, right? So even with that Oya still does what she has to do. She's the whole thing, king of my own country, living my own life. That's a lot of what Oya represents. Not letting people see who you are, so that you're not betrayed. A lot of that deals with Oya. So when we talk about Oya, and Joy, get back to your question, when we talk about Oya in relationship to Obatala, I don't see Obatala as victimizing himself. I see Obatala as dealing with a volatile nature, but still being a father to her. Still knowing that she can be good as well as she can be volatile. And trusting that, even though she is my daughter, she is a part of who I am too.
I think I understand what you're saying. I think I understand it from a perspective of being a mom.
Oh, girl. That'd be a whole nother film, but yeah, girl.
So our kids can say some stuff, have a slick mouth, but it doesn't mean that you don't love them. It don't mean that you just withdraw your trust from them. And it sounds like Oya has had many of instances where she's been checked, but in these instances, the story is not about her being checked. it's about the relationship. So I think I get it from that standpoint. And just as a mental health professional, Oya does not have a mental health disorder. She may have borderline personality disorder, but she does not have bipolar or manic depressive.
Mm-mm. No.
I wasn't going to DSM-4 the situation, but thank you very much. Katie, were you taking notes? She's going to have her MSW. So she's going for MSW. Were you taking notes, Katie?
You know I was.
Oh, I love y'all. Yes, that was funny. So that was pretty funny. So I'm glad we're having this conversation and getting to the nuance of it and and you guys asking really tough questions, because that's what this should be about. Because in order to wrestle with what inner alignment means, I think it's good to wrestle with the questions of how they relate to us and how we relate to them. So I really appreciate everyone, even though we're over time, I really appreciate everyone asking really tough. I'd rather make room for that. We can always make room for songs. In fact, we've been begging Iya Shabi to do a song class. So she may be doing one, hopefully soon, we'll see.
I've been begging Iya T to just make a cassette so we can buy it, because I think that would be helpful to kind of learn them on our own time. Because I've been to Shabi's class, and it's still, when everybody's trying to sing at one time, it gets a little hard.
Agreed. It can be a little hard. And so, yeah, that's why, I like to introduce songs to this, but I really love the discussions of the Pataki. I think those are enriching for those of us who are here and those for us who are not able to come tonight. So if there are no more questions, I want to just thank everybody for
Another word. Sorry.
Yes.
At the beginning you were saying about the difference between Obatala's role in our life and then the role in the Ile, and I know that you had mentioned like bringing peace to the home. Is that what you were referring to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for
and then,
asking.
of course. Sorry, one more thing. For the class on the Spiritismo, are there any updates on that?
Yeah, so okay, so I'll talk to you about that offline, but there is, thank you, Dashe. Yes, oh, you're going to Haji, okay, well, you don't tell them I said hi, but yay. Have fun with Haji.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Love you.
All right, see you. There have been classes that have been recorded, and so you may have access to some of those. I know Katie, I think you attended all of those, right? The spiritual development classes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they were very, very good. So so that might be another option. So we can talk offline about that.
Are we having prayers tomorrow?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We will have prayers tomorrow morning. As I mentioned, you guys, we're doing them once a month now. So I will be able to do them for this month. So hopefully everyone who can attend. And if you don't have a link to it, please let me know and I'll make sure to send it to you. But everyone here should have a link to it. So hopefully you guys can attend. And looking forward to it. All right. Okay. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. We'll do it. All right. That's good. All right. So it was good to speak to everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for attending.
Thank
There's some
you.
people that said they don't have the link.
Deidre, I don't have the link.
Who's that? Oh, Gia. Oh, okay. I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you. Good
All
night.
right. Fatumbe. Oh, you don't have it, Fatumbe? Yeah, I think okay. I'll look and see.
Take care, everyone.
Okay.
I'll send it to you, Batumbi.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Bye-bye,
also
bro.
could you send me the link for the class on Oba, and then any like of the spiritual development links is cool too.
I can't send you that one. You got to pay for that.
For Oba or for spiritual development?
For spiritual development. And I didn't mention, but we're asking for Southside Liberation for anyone who wants to give donations. Please do. I think you can go to the website, southsideliberation.org, .org. I know Fantubi, I know you have a relationship with the center.
Yeah.
But for those who want to donate, please feel free.
Will do.
All righty.
Okay.
He wanted to say bye.
Oh,
Peace.
bye.
Love you guys. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Have a good evening.
Deidre, I just have one question. For the video for Oshun, how do we get access to the videos, the recordings?
Oh, you did ask me about that. I just haven't gotten to it.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, I can send it to you.
It's okay, no problem. Okay, thank you. Have a
You're
good night.
welcome.
Okay.
All right.